Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for today. This is our meeting for July 16th, 2019. The first item on our agenda tonight is the consent calendar to discuss the minutes from our previous meeting. Commissioner England.
I move to approve those.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner England and a second from Commissioner Thomas. All those any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Green.
I make a motion that we move item number 6, the Barter property rezone, to be continued to August 20th, 2019.
Commissioner England.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to continue item number 6 until the meeting on August 20th. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I know there were a couple people downstairs, so just in case you made your way up here, we're not going to be discussing item 6 today. We will be doing that next month. Just wanted to make sure in case somebody slipped through our fingers downstairs. Next item we have up on the agenda is item number 2. This is the Eagles Nest rezoning. This is at 2973 to 3055 West Hahn Drive, a rezone of 3.69 acres from RR1D. That's rural residential 1 acre lot zone to RR20D rural residential 20,000 square foot minimum lots zone. Brooks Properties and Kurt Brooks is the applicant. Do you hear, sir? Please come on forward and tell us what you got.
Right now, there's 4 existing parcels there. We're going to combine them into one and do 5 half-acre lots, which would be me and my 4 daughters who would have those. And we're putting a road up the east side. It's a city road to connect to the road on the far north side of that, or south side of that property later on for you guys, I guess. And then we would tee it across to make a development to the other 2 sides available if they decide they want to develop at a later time.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? It was very succinct. Okay, we'll go ahead and reserve you some time if there's questions after the public hearing. Ms. Elgin.
Good evening, commissioners. The applicant was very succinct and he gave most of the details. I would like to point out that the future land use for this area is very low density residential, and that allows up to 2 housing units per acre, and this proposal is for 1.36 units per acre. So it does fit in with what the zoning and the general plan allow, and so staff is supportive and supports the recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Green.
Sorry, I think you answered my question just now, but so the future land use map on this is it low density or very low density? Because that shows very low, but so what's the difference between very low and low?
No, I can't.
It's just density. So very low is up to 2 units per acre, low is 2 to 3 per acre.
So this is consistent with the very low still with the future land use map and everything else around it then?
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, this is our first public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open this up to the public. If anybody's here to speak about item number 2, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Kay Johnson. I live at 8750, should say, 3060 West, 8750 South, West Jordan. We've lived here for probably 50 years or more. We've really enjoyed the RR zoning that we've had all the time. Over the years, we've had a few people come in and try to change that. But it's important to know that almost all of us that moved here was because we enjoyed the open lifestyle and the protection that the zoning provided for us. A zoning change like this is actually a foot in the door to zoning changes all over the neighborhood. If If this is allowed, there will be many properties in the future that will come in and talk to you about rezoning, 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 rezoning. The old zoning has served us well, and we'd sure like to continue to enjoy the protection of it. It's the right thing for the neighborhood, and it's the right thing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kirsty Bryson. I live at 3085 West, 8750 South, and I think I can pretty much just say ditto. You know, we really like the neighborhood the way it is and are not looking forward to having a road come through onto our road.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item tonight? Come on forward, please.
My name is Judy Calder. I live at 3053 West, 8750 South. I have lived there for 50 years. It was zoned, our whole section was zoned 1 acre minimum lots. I don't know when that changed, but I wasn't aware of it. We've fought this issue time and time and time again because it's one of the only places in this valley that has 1 acre horse property. And we cherish that, and we've come to appreciate the fact that it has been left as it was. And we would like it to stay the way it is and not allow this higher density housing right behind our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item tonight? Please come on forward.
Hi, my name is Kathy Anderson, and we live at the property 365 West, 3065 West, Hahn Drive, right next to this property. And we've been there for 50 years. And the traffic on Hahn Drive, along with the commercial properties across the street, up and down there with the new tracks and everything, it's ridiculous that I understand the people on the streets behind us want to keep their 1 acres, which they're not all 1 acres. A lot of them are 0.8 and less. But this land on this street has the property and the number of people and the traffic and stuff is just tremendous there now. So it would be nice to be able to do 2 houses per acre so that family members could be close to each other on this property that's kind of landlocked, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to come forward and speak tonight? Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you. I'm Terry Bryson. We just recently moved to the neighborhood, and I mean, one of the reasons we moved there was because of the large lot size and the horse property and the openness. And, you know, it's kind of a punch in the gut a little bit right off the bat. First thing that happens is, oh, all of a sudden we're going to start subdividing and shrinking these down. And there's already a lot of apartments not far away. And I just feel like it's a foot in the door for that.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for this item and bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Commissioner Green.
I'm going to come back and just ask a couple of questions. So currently, if I understood the applicant correctly, it's 4 parcels. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so each one of those 4 parcels, given the current zoning, even though it's RR1D, 4 parcels, 3.69 acres, they're not all an acre, they're not all acre lots now, correct?
No.
Okay, and so what we would be doing is going if we were to approve this zoning, we're going from 4 houses on those 4 lots to 5. Is that pretty much does that sum that up?
It could be, yes.
Plus a street? Okay.
Currently, there's 2, but they could do 4.
But I mean, given that there's 4 parcels there, and if 2 parcels are landlocked, there'd have to be an easement anyway. So that's what I'm just trying to clarify in my mind, what's happening here.
Anybody else? Commissioner Luthi.
Yeah, I think I agree with what was just said. It already has the possibility of, because of what it is, to house 4 different houses. Adding 1 more doesn't seem like you're adding an apartment. It's 1 more home, and I understand the spirit of what's being said here, and I am absolutely pro large lots. But even if it was a half-acre lot, that's by no definition a small lot. So for me, I think I'm in favor of it.
Commissioner England.
I agree with that totally. I look at this property, at least the overhead here, and abandoned vehicles. Anything we can do to improve this is an improvement in my book. I'm in favor of this.
Commissioner Green.
I'm gonna have to tell you, in 4 years, I'm gonna have to say this, and please don't take offense to this, but in 4 years on the planning commission, this is the first time I've had anybody argue against a 20,000 square foot lot in the city. Most of the time, people are fighting against the 6,000 and 8,000 square foot lots in the city. But I understand exactly where you're coming from, but this is very low residential. Very low residential allows up to 2 units per acre. And so I don't think, yeah, it's at least on the future land use map, I don't think we're that far out of bounds. I'm still trying to decide which way I want to vote, but I just wanted to make sure that's what we're still talking about.
Ms. Elgin. Oh, Commissioner Thomas.
I just want to make sure that we are talking no larger than a half acre, correct? As far as adding that extra house?
It's,
Because I know it would be more than probably a half acre, correct?
it's gonna have to be more than half acres, because
Do you mean smaller?
3.6.
I mean smaller, correct, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The smallest lot is 21,535 on their conceptual plan.
Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify a couple of
Yeah.
things? There's no intent at this time for the road to go through from Han Drive to 8750 South. That may or may not occur in the future. And so that road is not going to cross Bingham Creek. It will service the houses off of Han Drive. And secondly, there'll be no loss of animal rights on these properties because they are still in a rural residential zone. So they will be compatible with the other lots that are in the same area.
So that, I'm gonna follow that up. So in a rural residential 20, the animal rights are still there.
All right, anybody else? Commissioner Hatch.
I'm going to make a motion. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 3.69 acres from RR-1D Rural Residential 1 acre lots zone to RR-20D Rural Residential 20,000 square foot minimum lots zone on property located at 2973 to 3055 West Han Drive.
Commissioner England.
Second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hatch and a second by Commissioner England. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I think I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, the motion carries 6-1. That concludes this item. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, Life Launch Centers of South Salt Lake City, 9289 South Redwood Road. Conditional use permit for personal instruction services in a PC zone. Life Launch Centers of South Salt Lake, and Arden Smith, the applicant. Mr. Smith, are you here? Please come on forward.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. Life Launch Center South Salt Lake, it's an extension of Life Launch Centers that's located down in St. George, Utah. We've been in operation for 2 years down there. It's an intensive outpatient, meaning that they don't stay. They come for group and individual family counseling, and then they go home. This isn't for your typical troubled youth. We're really looking at these kids that are struggling with some anxiety and depression, maybe struggles going to school, or struggles that they've graduated and they can't go or can't move out of mom and dad's house, or have a struggle going on a church mission, or whatever it might be. And we're taking ages.
Sir, can you hang on 1 second? Can we get the door opened up, Nate or Larry, one of you guys? Sorry, we need to keep that door open for the meeting purpose. Go ahead.
Ages 11 to up. We say 26, but we've also had some 31-year-olds call up and say, I need some of the tools that you have to offer. This is a curriculum-based program. We are partnering with DBT Network of Utah, Christy Lamont. She is the executive director. She has been here in West Jordan running that program for over 7 years. And she's graciously accepted to be the executive director and oversee that for us here. Most of our groups run in the afternoon, late afternoon evenings. Our littles is what we call them, those 11-year-olds to 15. They're going to start coming in at about 3:30. I know the paper said 4, but our therapist needs a break to eat or drink something, and so they'll come in from 3:30 to, what was it, Christy? 3:30 to 6, and then the next group will come in at 6:30 to 9. So the littles, there's no parking. The parents will come, walk them up, and then they leave. And then they come and pick them up while they're with our therapist and staff. And so most of our groups that take any parking, which I know was the main issue, is you're talking 6:30 is when they're going to start rolling in, and that's past the prime time. And that's, unless you have any other questions. I know I heard some questions about length of stay. Yeah, that's typically the treatment plan. I can't remember who, that's not, yeah, we're not over, I've done that for 27 years. I don't want to do residential anymore, so this is strictly outpatient programming.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll go ahead and reserve you some time if it's needed after the public hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Forsyth, right? Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so as the applicant explained, and just to kind of give you some context in where this is located, so this is in the southernmost building of the Fox Office Park Complex, just on 9300 South Redwood Road. So normally, mental health counseling, particularly if it's on an individual basis, or family counseling, is simply considered an office use and not so much a personal instruction. But when you start to get into group therapy, that really falls under that definition. And so that's the reason why a conditional use permit is required in the PC zone. So as far as the surrounding areas, you've got the Stonebridge Apartments just to the east. To the south, you've got a single-family residential neighborhood. And then on the west, you've got Redwood Road, and to the north is the rest of that office complex. So we figure based on the nature of the business, that fits pretty neatly into the professional office intent, and so we feel that's going to be a good fit for that area. We're not anticipating any impacts, no noise, odors, dust, things like that. Everything's all inside a fully enclosed building. And they're looking at about 3,000 square feet of space, but they're probably only going to be using a fraction of that. So, and as far as traffic goes, the applicant touched a little bit about that. Again, we're not anticipating a whole lot. Most of this will be in the evenings. And about a third of that, most of those kids will simply be dropped off. So that'll help to alleviate the parking. Now we did do, we actually got 2 parking studies, one done by the property owner and one done by staff. And we essentially reach pretty much the same conclusions. The required parking is about 181 to 190 stalls for the entire complex, as that is a shared parking arrangement. And they have about 190 to 195 stalls on site. So even during the day, they should be able to accommodate that amount of parking. The access is pretty good on site. They've got an access onto Redwood Road and one onto Brigadoon Park Drive. However, I should point out that the south access has been barricaded off. So I don't know if that would play into the traffic or not, but I guess that's for you to decide. So, but based on these findings and findings in the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit for Life Launch Centers of South Salt Lake.
Thank you. When you mentioned that it's for us to decide about barricades on that south entrance, would like a little bit more clarification. What do you mean by our decision? If it's already barricaded, I mean, are we gonna go over there and take it off? Are we gonna go knock on the door? I mean, what's our expectation?
I just meant if that would play into the traffic circulation at all.
Well,
if there's an
issue. Do we know
there.
why there's barricades there?
I don't know.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this item. Is there anybody here that wants to come speak about this?
I'm Trina Anderson. I'm at 9349 Gaelic Circle.
Is this you?
That's me.
Perfect.
Thank you. I'm glad someone recognized. I did send an email. I wasn't sure I was going to be in town. This particular business complex has parking issues that is barricaded off by the landowner or the landlord or whoever of the business complex. I think mainly because they don't want people driving through it. What happens even now without the new business, people try to pull into the complex. There is an opening off of Redwood. If you're driving on Redwood, there's obviously 6 lanes plus a middle lane of traffic. If you're trying to find it, it is, you're making sure you're getting at the right spot. What normally happens, and we see it every single day, all day long, they pull into Brigadoon Park Drive, into the subdivision. They cannot access the parking lot for the complex because of the 2 barricades, which now have weeds and everything growing all around them. It has an entry. It's blocked. It should not be blocked. There is usually sufficient parking, I will say, but the people that pull into Brigadoon, you're not going to pull back out onto Redwood just to try to get into the parking lot. So they park on the street. We regularly have cars parked all the way along that street, which is a hindrance to all of the people in the subdivision. It's a subdivision, it's not a business. I propose we have no parking along that entire strip of Brigadoon Park Drive. On the south side of the street, there's a corner business of Enterprise Car Sales. Since the 3 lanes of traffic have been added in Redwood, now they're telling everybody basically to park over on the streets inside of our subdivision. That is not what it's meant to be. It is not a business. They should not be parked there. The first home, as you pull in, the elderly lady who lives there has to put cones out front so that people do not block her into her driveway. So I don't have a problem with the business. I think there's going to be a lot more people driving and parking than they think. Anyone from 16 above obviously can be driving. So I think we do need to address the parking issue. The complex, I believe, has enough access or enough parking stalls, especially given the hours that they're talking. The barricades need to be moved so people can access and actually park in the parking lot. But I would like signs no parking. It's a danger, people coming in and off and on Redwood Road with all those cars parked there.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address us about this topic? Come on forward.
I didn't fill out any form, so.
You're fine.
Cold
Name and
turkey,
address is
okay.
good enough.
So I'm Mike Nunley, I live at 9325 South Gaelic Circle. Gonna kind of reiterate what Trina was saying. The building should never been put in place. We made complaints when they built it, saying there's not enough parking. You guys put a stop to it, or somebody did. So we went in and created some more parking, which is junk parking, but just to make things happy. So now if you go in there, I guarantee you the ladder truck's not gonna get in if there's a fire because it's too tight. Enterprise, also the parking lot, I don't know who did the surveys. The landlord said he did one. You can't believe that guy. And then whoever else, I don't know who that person was because that parking lot was jam-packed yesterday. Enterprise, I don't know where all their cars are coming from, but they're parking all along Brigadoon. I've had to go in and tell them to move because they're parking right up against the stop sign, which is illegal, so it's a major problem. Also, I'd like to know, the patients are coming in, are any of them court-ordered patients coming to this place, or are they still volunteer? I think that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Murray, do you want to address that last question? Is that something we can discuss?
Well, you really can't discriminate based upon whether someone's court-ordered or not to participate, so that's probably something you would not consider.
That's what I wanted to make sure of. Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
I just want to know, can we remove that barrier as a city, or is that something? Because normally when you put a barrier up that blocks an entrance to a parking lot, they work in conjunction with the city traffic engineers.
Is that where the barrier's at,
Okay.
right there?
That's my question, where it is.
Is that it right there? Right, right, right here?
jersey barricades?
Okay.
So that's my question is, can we as a city move those or require the landowner to move those? Since that was originally designed to have an entrance and egress out of that parking lot. Anybody care to answer?
Yes,
Forsyth.
yeah, we can do that.
Can we make that a condition?
Yeah, in fact, that would probably be best.
Commissioner England.
Sounds to me like we have two
Can I
separate issues
interact?
here. Go ahead, Larry.
I wouldn't make it a condition on this business, because they're occupying one space. We'll work with them to get those removed. We need to talk to the landlord for the whole big 5-acre complex, and I think it was on a site plan and an approved site plan, and so they're in violation of that. I'd rather address it that way than make it a condition on these people who really have nothing to do with it.
I agree. Commissioner Green.
So I'm gonna ask the city, Mr. Murray or city engineer may be able to answer the question. Even with the issues, the neighbors clearly have an issue with the parking on Brigadoon Drive. Do we have the ability to put, and I know we can't make that a condition in this meeting either, but do we have the ability to look at that and put up some no parking signs along that stretch of road to help them out?
It is a city street, so the city has the ability to do that. Generally, we would have the traffic engineer look at that and look at the situation and determine where those signs would be, whether it would be both sides of the road or one side of the road. Generally, he would, just knowing, I don't think it would be likely that to put no parking on both sides of the road. But we could have Bill Baranowski take a look at that, and it's definitely something the city has the ability to intercede on.
That would be, at least one recommendation would be to make sure that we do that. Now, I'm going to raise one minor technical issue. On the application, the company name is Life Launch Center of South Salt Lake. I did a little bit of research while I was looking this up. It's technically an LLC. And I know the letter said that there are owners, technically they're members. So one of the things that I would recommend that we do, just to bring things in line and make sure that we're all good, is that I'd like to see a condition added that we modify the application so it's consistent with the appropriate business organization. Other than that, besides the discussions that we've had, I don't have any problems with a conditional use here.
Commissioner Quinney, as far as enterprise car lot, we're gonna look into that. I do believe there's a condition of approval that they don't park business cars on the street, and so we'll certainly address that. So,
If they're not parking their cars but telling their customers to park down the street, is there?
No, but I think there was a condition that addressed that also. So.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I thought when we dealt with the enterprise, that there was a limit to the number of cars they could have in the lot.
Commissioner Green.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Hold on, Commissioner England, did you have?
I was gonna make a motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'll make the motion that, based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for Life Lodge Centers of South Salt Lake located at 9289 South Redwood Road, subject to conditions of approval listed on page 2 of the staff report, adding condition 3 that the application be modified to be consistent with the current business organization listed with the state.
Commissioner England.
Second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Green and a second from Commissioner England. And I will just make one quick notice. The applicant said that they were gonna start services at 3:30, is that correct? And the condition here says between the hours of 4 and 10. So we need to amend that to commit that condition to 3:30. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for willing to do business in West Jordan. All right, next item is West Jordan Marketplace Commercial, 9204 South, 5600 West, a rezone of 22.81 acres from PC Planned Community Zone to SC3 Regional Shopping Center Zone. The City of West Jordan is the applicant. Mr. McCandless.
Thank you. This piece of property is located between the Mountain View Corridor and 5600 West. This will give you kind of a better framework to where what I was talking about in our pre-meeting. So you got 90 South on the north side, and then on the south side there's an industrial property. To the east is multifamily residential. This is a copy of the zoning map. North of 90th South, it's kind of hard to read, but it's zoned SC3, so that's a regional shopping center zoning district. The property itself is all zoned. It's got a couple of parcels in there, but it's zoned planned community. And the multifamily residential across the street is also zoned in the planned community zoning district. The property to the south of this is in an M1 or light industrial district. So the request is to remove the planned community designation and zone it to SC3, basically to accommodate more intensive retail uses than would be allowed under the current PC zoning district. As I also talked about in the pre-meeting, the planned community zoning district is a less intensive zone, but it's kind of a mixed zone. It allows for some limited residential, kind of along the lines of a neighborhood commercial type of commercial use. It also allows for single-family and multifamily residential. So given this location, you've got a busy arterial street on the east side of 5600 West, and then you've also got the Mountain View corridor, which will someday be a freeway. There's a lot of noise that's generated by this, and given that you've also got a manufacturing district to the south, we think that SC3 zone would be an appropriate zoning for this property. I think it relates more with the property that's across 90th South than it does to to any other side. So we think that would work at this particular location. This is the future land use map. It shows that this is a regional shopping center, so the proposed zoning does match the future land use map. With that, we'd recommend, because of those, just where it's located, the changes that have occurred over time since that PC zoning was adopted, the fact that the Mountain View corridor is now in place, we think that SC3 zoning district works at this location. So our recommendation would be for approval, or for a positive recommendation of the council.
We gotcha. Any questions for staff? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing section of this. If there's anybody that'd like to speak on this item, please come on forward now. Most of our audience has disappeared. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Green.
I think this is absolutely an appropriate decision for this corner. I think that these busy corners are good places for commercial. The fact is that I think that PC zone is a straggler, and there's no way we're gonna make a PC zone with 22 acres worth of land, given what we're talking about today. So, I think this is the exact thing that we need to be doing for this corner. Like you said, Mr. McCandless, it matches across the street at 90th and 56th. I'm assuming that the other two corners on 56th are also commercial of some sort. And so to have one of the busiest what will eventually be a super busy intersection in the state have commercial on it, I'm going to say that this one's a no-brainer.
Commissioner England.
Are we good to entertain a motion?
Go for it.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone the property from PC Planned Community to an SC3 Regional Shopping Center zone located at 9204 South, 5600 West.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner England and a second from Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to this motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And on to our final item, Westridge Commercial, 5500 West Bagley Park Road, General Land Use Map Amendment for 12.084 acres from public facilities to community commercial and rezone from a PF public facility zone to a CM heavy commercial zone. Westridge Academy, John Stolten, did I say that right? Is the applicant. Come on forward, sir.
Troy Wolverton, 2010 North Redwood Road. John asked if I would represent him on this application. Westridge Academy, as you're familiar with, has been there for quite some time, and their planning has changed over the many years. They've gotten to a point where they've just got some remaining parcels that they do not have a long-range plan to use. They would like to put this land into the highest and best use for them. Planning the public facilities zoning that is currently there is the remaining parcels are not of a size that enables them to be able to have someone come in and use the public facilities. And so they've just asked for this heavy commercial zoning that they might be able to move to a more logical use for the remaining properties that they hold.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll go ahead and reserve you some time. Mr. McCandless.
Thanks. This property is located just north of Bagley Park Road. As you recall, there was a, I got that pointer. I got it right here. This was a single-family residential subdivision that was approved here not too long ago. It extends, just kind of wraps around the Westridge Academy and then comes down into this piece right here. There's a road that extends out here. Looks like there's an access to the academy that was here, but that'll be extended out to that new road in the future. The request is to, as I mentioned again in the pre-meeting, the applicant had originally come in for light manufacturing zoning on this, but we, as staff, didn't think it was appropriate because it'd bring all those heavy industrial uses closer to the residential development that's existing and proposed as well. So this entire piece of property is currently zoned PF. It's public facilities. And that wraps around here along Bagley Park Road and then extends up along the back side of this residential area here. So the applicant has now come in with a request for a CM zoning district, or change these two pieces of property to CM zoning district. When it's kind of hard to remember what the standards are for these zoning districts sometimes, so I ran in the back just after our meeting and pulled up the CM zoning standards and the questions, so I just need to put some of those to rest, or just to clarify some of those things. The minimum lot area in that CM district is 10,000 square feet, not 5 acres.
Where did I read 5?
Yeah. The minimum lot width is 70 feet. It meets that requirement. The front yard is 10 feet. Minimum corner side yard is 10 feet. There's no requirement for a side yard, and the rear yard is 0. Now, there is another provision that's part of this in the back that requires a 20-foot setback when the use is up against a residential zoning district. So it says when it's adjacent to residential uses, the minimum setback is 20 feet plus an additional foot for every foot the building height is over 35 feet. So that's right out of the code. Go back here to the plan. The proposed uses, the applicant doesn't have a particular use in mind on this property at this point in time, but they're looking at subdividing that sometime in the future. That subdivision request and any site plan review will need to come back to the Planning Commission for further review. At that time, the fire department will look at accesses to make sure there's adequate fire access to the academy. So at this point, they're just looking at the land use and the zoning change. We think that the CM district is a better fit than a light industrial. We really don't think that a commercial uses or commercial land use designation would be appropriate this time. It's just kind of buried in the middle of kind of an industrial area. We also talked about an office use there, but again, there's no real, it doesn't front onto a street. It's kind of buried back behind in more of an industrial area. So we think that the CM zoning is a good fit for the area, just given the adjoining uses and these adjoining uses and then what's anticipated for the property. So our recommendation would be for approval, for a favorable recommendation again to the city council. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Commissioner Green.
I knew that the medical marijuana bill hadn't kicked in yet, but because I thought I was smoking something. I think we have an issue in the code, because you pointed out in the lot and bulk standards chart in 13.4 that CM's 10,000, yet in 13.5E2, it specifically says each CM zone shall contain a minimum of 5 acres. So we've got a conflict. Because we can't combine these two because they're not together. So we've got a conflict because the one part of the code says 10,000 and another part of the code says 5 acres. Which one is going to, we obviously know we got to change the code now, but which one takes precedence?
Yeah, without looking at those two provisions, I would have to, I don't think I can answer that question, but generally the more specific trumps the more general. Which one is more specific, Larry?
Well, I think the way you look at it is each CM zone, which each of these properties are CM zones because they're not contiguous.
Right.
So each one of those has to meet 5 acres for the zone change to occur. It doesn't mean the lot has to be 5 acres. The lot is 10,000 square feet in the subdivision. So as long as the property meets the 5 acres. And I was incorrect on the 60-foot setback when in the pre-meeting, that I was hearkening back to the M1 standard that's 60 feet, and
So what we're saying here is that and on their concept, the 5 acres is gonna be one concept, but in theory, we could divide this 5 acres into 10,000 square foot lots. And that meets the CM. So we've just got to ensure that when they do the subdivision, that site 1 meets, I mean, right now they're right at the 5 acres. We just need to ensure that that stays at 5 acres and doesn't get shaved off somehow.
and we'll make sure of that before it goes to the council, so. Okay.
Any other, Commissioner Luthi?
For the same reason that I was not in favor of the lot sizes right up against that west edge where we've got the industrial, I don't really love how close the residential is to site 2. I think site 1, I'm completely on board. I think it's a great use of the space to change it to this, but at site 2, that is a rough sell for those 5 houses that are right there, that is now their backyard when they would have had never seen this coming.
This is gonna be homes too.
I said I was against that
There's
when
gonna
that
be
came
a
in,
s-
and that was my opening
there'll be a
statement.
street
I'm
there, though.
against that, but I'm talking about over here on site 2. Yeah, that's a hard sell.
Any other questions or comments for staff? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this item. If anybody would like to speak on this item, please come forward at this time. And just remember to state your name and address for the record.
I am Sally Klink, 9324 South Wisteria Way, and I am living in one of those 5 houses affected, so that's why I came tonight. We moved here recently. My husband is Senior Vice President of SME Steel, which is part of the industrial making the noises, so I'm well aware of some of the sounds. Having said that, and the site of the denuded mountain, I saw that before we moved in. My concern tonight really is the water retention basins directly behind my home. So as whatever you choose to put in there, I'm going to need your help to avoid floods of biblical proportions in my basement. You know, I'm getting accustomed to the dirty diaper, sour milk smells from the dairy, making yogurt, you know, we just go inside. But, you know, having our properties values go way down is really a strong concern. And as more concrete pads come in, you know, at the engineering meeting, I plan to return just to protect my property values, if nothing else. And, you know, how much new noise is going to come in. I assume industry is going to be there 8 to 5, which is not too bad. But again, the sights, the sounds, and the smells, I mean, we are very much enjoying our semi-rural environment that we, instead of moving to Sandy, we've chosen to be right next to the plant. So I'd like to stay, but if an inappropriate choice is made, frankly, we be out of here. So I'm depending on you to do the right thing, make the right choice, because we are one of those 5, and I'm here to represent the others who couldn't be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Stolten, applicant, 5500 West Bagley Park Road, West Jordan. Westridge Academy has been a part of this community for 55 years. We've been in this site since 1991. When we first came out, the Bagley Park Industrial subdivision was just in its infancy, and we had roaming elk herds. Now we understand growth, and we've seen it because we've experienced it, and we've seen everybody encroach upon what were just fields back in 1990 and 1991. So our longevity really relies upon how we use this 80 acres. We purchased that back in 1991. We're only utilizing 34 acres of that 80 acres. So yes, we did have a sale of the north property. Yes, we are looking to sell Site 1 and Site 2 for the longevity of the academy for another 55 years to go into an endowment for our students. What's interesting about Site 2, and you may be familiar with, we were required when we built the girls' facility to put in a detention pond. So while the code states that there's a 20-foot setback, we are prohibited to encroach upon that detention pond that runs along the concrete barrier separating us and the Wildflower subdivision, which is more than 60 feet. So we are expanding that by 3-fold. So whatever goes in there will not be at 20 feet, it'll be more at 60 feet because of the detention ponds. We appreciate the staff's recommendation and their diligence in this, and we too add our recommendation for passing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion. Commissioner Green.
Hey, can you go to page 12 of the stat? It's numbered page 12, but I think in the PDF file it's 21. It's the one that's got, actually I think it's got the concept in it. It may actually have the detention pond drawn on it. Can we put that up? Okay. So are we talking the detention, based on the one that I look at, it looks like the detention pond runs somewhere in here? Is that right? Runs right along the fence?
Ray, if you go to the city website, that's where the setback is.
Would you like me to answer that?
Not right now. Julie knows that website.
We're way down the list.
Commissioner Luthi, while they're looking, if you got something.
Yeah, I do actually. I just have a procedural question. Are we able to separate recommendations separately? Or because it was one application, is it a yes or no scenario?
Let me clarify that question. So which
Could I say yes to Site 1 and no to Site 2?
Gotcha.
Or is it an all or nothing variety?
That's more of a zoning administrator question as to how he interprets the code.
No, the application is as it's presented, so.
that one.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
So, is the detention pond the entire area? All the way around there? So it's that big area, not just a little skinny thing along the back?
And what's the setback after the detention?
On the side yard would be 0, but there is a 20-foot landscape buffer requirement, so.
So we have at least 40 feet from the fence line to wherever any buildings are gonna be sitting. At least 40,
I think it's significant.
yeah.
Is this the setback line?
That's the lot line.
So what would be there?
That would be detention.
That's the lot line, and then you can see where they've got the PUEs kind of laid out for the easements and stuff.
Yeah, so
So-
the lot line would be here, and then this would be an easement.
Oh, that's easement as well.
I think that would be the easement.
You know, I think our applicant probably knows his property the best. I move that we suspend the rules and let him come back up really quick.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There should be a pointer up there for you.
So if we can blow it back out a little bit more. Actually, on site, our detention starts here and flows to the east, is collected here, runs to an additional pond here, which has overflow capabilities to go into the wildflower, not anymore. It's been removed into the regional detention. So it starts here, comes here to the first one, here to the second one, and then there's a third one here. So the setback, this line here represents the setback. So all of this along here is detention.
And that distance, that setback distance is,
The setback that's drawn here was originally proposed for the M1 zoning, so it's shown at 60 feet.
but you're saying it's not going to be?
No, there's a structure right here, and there's a structure right here, and there's pipes that connect to the regional detention basin. And then there is a city easement for the public water from the residential subdivision to drain through here and get to the regional basin. There's an easement that's in here. So there will not be development against the existing homes.
For 60 feet.
For roughly 60 feet. And
Okay.
what John had mentioned before was more than 20, because that's more than what the current zoning requires.
Commissioner England.
I too live on Wisteria. This is my backyard. My concern is the noise.
Thank you.
And the elevation. 60 feet's great, but this towers over that wildflower neighborhood. So you mentioned this is the best use for you guys. I think there's something we can do better here. This doesn't have my support.
What's the maximum building height in this for this zoning?
It's 35 feet.
Is there anything else in this Bagley Park area that's 35 feet? I'm thinking about when I've been out there, it seems like it's all 1-story, maybe 2-story shops, but mostly it's 1-story warehouse type of buildings, right? Commissioner Green.
So I'm gonna ask Commissioner England, as you live on this street, how much, if I remember previous testimony from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Wisteria sits lower than this property anyway. How much, is it, what, 10, 15 feet?
It changes as you go south. So where I'm at on the north, I'm at 9096, where the cul-de-sac is going in, the residential, it's higher on the Westridge Academy side. As you go south, it levels out, but it's still 10 to 15 feet above our backyards at our highest point. 10 to 15 feet above, I think, 8-foot concrete cast walls that they've put as our physical divider between us and the Westridge Academy. And that's on the far south end where we're talking those 6 homes. And again, our views aren't there. They're not protected. To me, it's the noise. We already hear steel banging all night long. We hear the meat packing plant, the M&M distributing whatever that is by the retention pond there.
Military helicopters.
Yeah, those are great, but
I'm good with those.
Those are at 10:30 every night. To me, it's just the noise and the problems we're having with Dannon with the smells. Who knows what's going to move in here? And trying to get those regulated once they're in there is difficult.
Commissioner Luthi.
I think it's one thing if this was a future land use of already having this be what was going in. It's not that I wouldn't feel for the situation. I just would think you didn't quite do your homework because it was always supposed to be planned that way. With this not being the plan, again, I go back that that's a really hard thing to impose on these people, that now they're dealing with something that they didn't see coming. So I think for me, it's a no.
Commissioner Green.
Can I want to ask Mr. Gardner and Mr. McCandless another question. Given, if I understand this correctly, part of this is to be able to subdivide it and be able to do a subdivision and then be able to sell it. My question would be, and I know this is a crazy thought, but can this property be subdivided without a zoning change? And then you'll know, obviously you'll know the second question is, because then the new property owners could come in with the right zoning. Or because of the way they have the concept, does it have to be rezoned to do that?
Well, I think the reason for the land use map and zone change is use related. They get a much more expanded use in the CM zone than the PF. I don't have the PF code right in front of me, but I don't think it allows like business or industrial type uses. It's more, water tanks, ball fields, institution type things. So to answer your question, yes, the subdivision could occur, but the reason for the zone change is use related, because I think that it's more appealing for it to have something that already has the zoning in place if you're trying to sell it. So.
I'm gonna just jump in here again. I'm really concerned because the CM zone is intended to provide for the location of manufacturing, noise, warehousing that are operated or in conjunction with or incidental to a retail commercial establishment. So if we read this, what a CM zone is, it's supposed to be it's in an area which is a congruous mixture of retail, commercial, warehousing, heavy commercial, and light manufacturing. I don't, by the definition of CM code, or the CM district, why it may be the only one that we can think fits, I don't see how this meets a congruous mixture of retail, commercial. There's no way we're going to put retail in here. Nobody's going to go up and buy stuff. Nobody's going to go in there. And as you read through the CM zone later on, it talks about characters of this zone are warehouses, light manufacturing or assembly plants, machine shops, automobile repair facilities, furniture and appliance repair, tire capping, building material stores, and yards. I don't know if that's a good, right there next to a residential. I mean, I know we have Home Depot next to residential off of 90th, but I think that's Julie's neighborhood, isn't it? That's next door to Home Depot. I have a real concern with just and I know it's supposed to be a transitional zone between industrial and residential and lighter commercial district. I just don't see how this fits as a commercial district where it's supposed to have a mixture of retail, commercial, other stuff, and be a transition. I just don't see how that works for this neighborhood. I don't know, maybe somebody else can convince me, but currently right now because it talks about softened with street frontages and all kinds of things. This seems to me more like, I'll say it out loud, this seems to me more like a Sam's Club or a Costco area that, that's what CM's for, but I don't know. Maybe I don't understand where this zone's supposed to go, but I'm concerned that this doesn't quite meet the, what a commercial zone really is supposed to be, but that's just me.
Well, for my part, I'm having a little bit of heartburn about this because I feel very much that the applicant who owns this property has their right to do with it as they please, so long as it fits with the city code. As I'm looking through the findings, I'm looking through the criteria, I don't think I like it because it seems like it's a really odd placement for this, but I don't see anything that we can specifically eliminate and say, nope, that doesn't fit. That doesn't make sense in that finding, that criteria. I don't know, maybe we can encourage them. They've been a great partner of the city for a long time. I'd imagine they're gonna find great partners to come in here and find this space. And I feel for the citizens and the residents who live right behind here, that they didn't see this coming. Excuse me, but in my opinion, we can't block an applicant from doing what they want with their property so long as it fits. And this is what we've made fit. This CM zone, whether we like it or not, fits that residential to industrial space that we're talking about. I don't think, at least from our perspective, the city council maybe can come in here and do something more, but from our perspective, I don't see how we can come in and say, nope, doesn't work. Because I don't see anything in here that says finding of facts or these criteria that we're in violation of. Commissioner Green.
I'm gonna slightly disagree. I'm gonna look specifically at finding A, and it says the applicant is proposing to amend the future land use to accommodate 2 future industrial subdivisions, yet the CM zone is supposed to be a bridge between industrial subdivisions and other areas. So how do you put an industrial subdivision into a commercial zone when the CM zone it's an industrial use, but the CM zone is specifically prohibited from having industrial uses? It's a transition zone between industrial areas, and it's supposed to be some sort of mixture between warehousing, heavy commercial, light manufacturing, and that's, light manufacturing is different than industrial use. So when we look at finding A, I'd have to say I disagree. Maybe finding B works. Finding C, I'm not sure that it's, if we're saying that it's an industrial zone, it's compatible with the other side of Bagley Park. If we're saying it's commercial and it's supposed to have some sort of mixture of commercial or tied to commercial, it doesn't, so I'm not sure the finding C applies. I would actually have to also say that, and I'll sound terrible, but finding D says that it's an overall improvement to the adopted general land use map and not solely for the good or benefit of a particular person or entity. And I'd have to tell you that from my perspective, this is solely for the purpose of benefiting West Ridge Academy. Because, and this is nothing against West Ridge. I ref basketball there all the time. I love your basketball coach, by the way, or at least when George was there. they're trying to sell off some of their property. Well, who's that benefiting by rezoning? And what we've got to make sure that this does is that it's an improvement to the general land use map. And I'm not sure it does. And when I'm looking at F, I'm not sure it's consistent with the code. And I think it will, if, we've already heard testimony that the proposed amendment will adversely affect the neighborhood because it alters the land use patterns and does some other things. So I would say that based on my interpretation, there are several findings that we could say, no, it doesn't fit. But that's me.
I'll disagree with you, especially on finding D, because yes, while Westridge is the entity that benefits, they've been benefiting the residents of West Jordan and the state really, and beyond for 55 years. So the reality is we all benefit because we have a place where our troubled children can go and be taken care of. I've worked with these guys closely in the past, and I've seen what they can do. So I think that this allows Westridge Academy as an entity to continue to operate, as you said, in perpetuity, to go ahead and continue to benefit these children that we're sending there. Maybe not us directly, but it benefits people in our neighborhood and in our community who are sending their children there that are being taken care of. So I think that finding D very much benefits the entire city. I do have a question about the transition. Each of these lots are going to be subdivided. How much control do we have on what goes into each of these subdivisions? Because as I look along that east side of Bagley Park down south of this space here, in my mind when I've been out there, everything is mostly it's yards. They're single-story buildings. I mean, to me, if that's what we're getting is single-story buildings with some yards where we park some vehicles, I don't see a lot of noise coming out of these spaces. Yes, it's overlooking the neighborhood, and I get that, but I mean, I feel like that's a congruous transition into the area.
With the Planning Commission's purview, it's whether or not the buildings or the proposed buildings of the site complies with code requirements. So we can't, so if it's allowed in the table of permitted and conditional uses, then we have no control over it. If it's a conditional use, it's essentially permitted, but the Planning Commission has the ability to mitigate potential impacts to neighborhoods. So if it's a conditional use that comes in, you might have further say over building heights and setbacks and those kinds of things and hours of operation. But if it's a straight permitted use, then no.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anybody willing to make a motion either way? Commissioner Hatch.
I'll make a motion. Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map from public facilities to community commercial on property located at 5500 West Bagley Park Road.
Second. Do we want to do both of these at the same time?
Have to.
Well, do we want to read the
there's
zoning map amendment as well?
Is that based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations
No,
received?
those need to be separate motions.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
I thought you were talking about the property themselves.
Okay, so we have a motion for Commissioner Hatch and a second from me. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Let's
Motion
do a
fails.
roll call. Do a roll call. That was kind of confusing, so.
I got it. It was 2 in favor, 5 opposed. Commissioner Hatch and myself.
Let's dispose of the motion. We'll deal with it. And I will just do it based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and on the evidence and explanation received today. I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to rezone 12.084 acres from PF to a CM zoning district.
Is that a positive recommendation?
Yeah, I'm just reading the motion so we can vote on it.
We did the future land use
The
map
future
first.
land use map.
So you're submitting a positive recommendation?
Yeah. Doesn't mean I'll vote for it, but.
No, isn't, are you making a motion, doesn't that make it?
Remember, you're a recommending body. It's the council's decision, not yours.
Does it? Yes. Oh, then I withdraw my motion.
Commissioner Hatch.
I'll make a motion. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 12.084 acres from a PF Public Facilities Zone to a CM Heavy Commercial Zoning District.
Second. We have a motion from Commissioner Hatch and a second from Commissioner Quinney. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No. No.
That's fails 5-2 again.
I move that we adjourn. That's all our items on the agenda, right?
Don't we need to
So,
have,
I
we need
just-
to have a satisfactory motion here?
Yeah,
right?
I just remind you that you haven't taken any action yet. I mean, you can always make a motion that's
If you don't like it, you can.
a negative
recommend it.
recommendation, but you haven't taken any action yet. You haven't made any recommendation to the council. So at some point, the council's gonna want a recommendation, whether it's positive or negative. Something has to pass by.
Commissioner
4
England.
votes.
All right, we'll do these one at a time. Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report, and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map from public facilities to community commercial on property located at 5500 West Bagley Park Road.
And findings, we need findings with negative recommendation, so.
You just need to identify which ones of those findings that, or criteria that you find does not fit. Something akin to what Commissioner Green was talking about earlier. You've got to find some specific finding that
Can I
does
add
not
something?
comply.
Yes.
So one of the ones that I disagree with is, it talks about in criteria two, that the property amendment would result in compatible land use relationships and does not adversely affect adjacent properties. And that's the one that I'm kind of holding to, is I think it will impact negatively against the adjacent properties.
That's enough.
Is that a second, Commissioner Luthi?
Yes.
We have a motion from Commissioner England and a second from, that was the future land use. Oh,
For both.
we had to do them one at a time.
So,
We have to do each motion individually. We're doing both lots together,
Oh, I
but
get
we're
what you're
doing
saying.
each motion individually.
Was that?
Sorry, that was under the zoning that I read directly from.
Okay, so we still need,
I misunderstood what
we
she was
still need
saying.
a second for the future land use map amendment motion. Oh, that's right.
I get what you're asking now. Let me go back through it, because that's where I had read it this morning.
So your finding C is the one,
Commissioner England.
Finding C, the proposed amendment will not, my finding is that it will not be compatible with other land uses existing or planned in the vicinity.
Okay, now we're looking for a second on that future land use map motion.
Second.
Commissioner Luthi, thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner England, a second from Commissioner Luthi. Any discussion to the motion? Commissioner Badon.
Yeah, concerned that the applicant can kind of modify and massage this with staff and come back later. Or denying this does not prevent that.
We're not denying anything. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries 5-2. Entertain a motion. Commissioner England.
Based on the information, pardon? Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation to the City Council to rezone 12.084 acres from a PF Public Facility Zone to a CM Heavy Commercial Zoning 2, and its criteria 2. Do I need to read that?
Need a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Luthi, thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner England and a second from Commissioner Luthi. Any discussion to this motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries 5-2.
Now I'll
With
do
City
the motion.
Council.
Now I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
It does.